Hello and welcome to another episode of My Opinion Means Nothing. This week I'm here on the show and I'm joined by Repeat Pete Poet.
Ciao, ciao.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, man, doing good. It's
good.
January, coming back off Christmas, so
Yeah, it's the new year. So, because it's a new year, I'm going to ask this question. What are the three best things that happened to you last year and what are you looking forward to this year?
Three best things that happened to me last year. I went on, so I had my first international performance. That was sick. I did a little, I opened for Tommy Systems when he was doing a poetry feature in Paris. Okay. So I did like a 5-minute thing over there. That was really sick. The second one was personal. It was just about, I was regularly getting massages last year, and that was like a big step because it meant I just took care of my body in a bit of a different way. So that's the second one. And then the third one is I had one specific performance at the Pop-Up in the Lunar Lounge, which is an event in Leighton, and I rapped for like 10 minutes solidly as a band jammed in behind me, and the band got more and more complex and more different instruments as I rapped on and on and on. So yeah, they're my three things. Paris, massages, and that specific memorable gig.
And what are you looking forward to this year?
You see, I'm looking forward to developing relationships, like focusing more on myself. I didn't focus on myself any of last year. I was just autopiloting, going through the gigs, making sure I was giving as much as I could at every gig, all of the time. And, you know, for better or for worse, just meant that I didn't focus on my internal as much.
Yeah.
So this year, I'm going to be focusing on myself as a person more, and then hopefully I'm looking to put out some actual projects this year, because last year I was just gigging, but this year I'm going to hopefully have something to push as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So usually I just talk about what's happening in the world. I have been looking through the news like over the last couple of days. Found this interesting article today while I was on my way here about, do you know Caroline Duffy? She's due to step down as Poet Laureate. Mm-hmm. So there's loads of people who are in the front liners to be the next Poet Laureate. Mm-hmm. One of which is Benjamin Zephaniah, who has decided he's turned it down completely. He wants to rule himself out only because that, like with the OBE thing, he doesn't want to take anything. He doesn't need anything from the state, from anyone for him. Sorry, mate.
It's all good, man. We all got mums for interesting times.
So basically, she was saying, Benjamin Zephaniah was saying that when he turned down the OBE, because he said, up yours, he thought, it gets him angry, the fact of the word empire, which reminds him of slavery, which reminds him of the 1,000 years of brutality, which reminds him of his forefathers and his foremothers being raped and brutalized. So for him, accepting an OBE is not something he would want to do, and it's the same thing for being Poet Laureate. He said he has absolute no interest in this job. It won't work for him. I won't work for them. They oppress me, they upset me, and they're not worthy. How do you feel about the whole thing? Do you think that he's right in what he's saying, or maybe there's changes that he could make? Because as a Poet Laureate, you have a lot of power within literature in England, so I don't know, maybe it's...
Okay. So with a lot of things about like the monarchy, the royal family, like how they operate in the public imagination is a lot different from the actual power they have, I think.
Yeah.
And so like it's a weird thing about like cultural power, so like soft power, and then like what you would call hard power, so like maybe monetary power or like the power to commission stuff and things like that. So weirdly enough, the Poet Laureate is very much a ceremonial role. Okay. And so because of the optics and the visuals of all of it, I totally get where Benjamin Zephaniah is coming from and not wanting to be part of it at all.
Okay.
Because he just doesn't want to, he doesn't want to have member of the British Empire or Order of the British Empire, you know, following his name, and that follows around everything he does.
Yeah, of course.
Similarly, though, David Olusoga, a historian who's been doing all the Civilizations episodes, he has recently accepted an OBE, and he wrote an article in The Guardian about it. And a lot of his justification was that seeing any black person receive that accreditation, it's kind of like a marker of not quality, but a marker of success.
Yeah.
And so, like, personally, in terms of like Caroline Duffy leaving the role, yeah, fine. You know, if somebody asked me right now, I wouldn't take it. But for different reasons to Benjamin Zephaniah, yes, I'm still caught up in like the colonial legacy, and I don't want to be too attached to that. But I would be totally happy with being named Poet Laureate if I knew that I could affect real change in specific ways. But currently, I don't think the Poet Laureate does that. They're called up for very, like, you know, specific points, and you're only ever asked to respond to specific issues by, you know, by basically
that makes sense.
By the.
I mean, the way how it appears in my head, it makes me think that you would have more power than, because like Carolyn Duffy, I've known her name through the whole of GCSE because she's all over the anthology, you know. Mm-hmm. So like, I would have thought that because you're the Poet Laureate, you would have more pull as to what poems are being studied in schools and stuff like that. But if it's just more of just a figurehead, and when there's a national holiday, you might write a nice poem for that.
It's like holidays, like national tragedies. Sadly enough, it's you know, there'll be a lot of. So, for instance, it's been the anniversary of World War One, 1914 to 1918. That's when the Poet Laureate would be called up. You know, there's been, let's say it's like, you know, the Commonwealth Games, or like, you know, England are in the Cricket World Cup, or you know, a large national level public event is happening. That's when the Poet Laureate, or at least that's when the Poet Laureate is seen to be visible. Behind the scenes, the Poet Laureate just hasn't got that much sway, I don't think, anymore.
Which is upsetting, though, for literature, because, I mean, just language itself, I feel like written words are the only things that's evolving nowadays. Mm-hmm. Any other forms of communication, or just the way how we make notes of things, it's not really evolving. It feels like it's just staying the same or getting worse, whereas the written word is actually thought-provoking.
Mm-hmm. Within the world of like poetry as well, to have we're talking about the you know, the Poet Laureate for the UK.
Yeah.
There's the London Young People's Poet Laureate.
Yeah, no, I
which
saw
is
that
a far
as well.
more, like, for me, I feel more like a Londoner than I do arguably like, you know, a member of the British Empire, which is what, you know what I mean?
100%.
So if it was about the things I like in the London Young People's Laureate, the opportunities that you get to do there are the sort of stuff that I'd want to do on a national scale, but it seems more of a ceremonial thing, whereas the London Young People's Poet Laureate seems more like an active role. Mumtaz and Mary is the current one. Caleb Femi was it for, you know, last year, and they had real impactful things, and they were kind of from a spoken word culture, more of a spoken word culture, especially Caleb, but he's also a teacher. They could do that thing of marrying up like modern multi-ethnic London slang and, like, you know, language, putting it on paper and not having it lose its like potency, and that's a sick thing. And all of that energy coming from younger writers, specifically younger non-white writers, I think that's like a super important thing that the Poet Laureate for the UK should be doing on a national scale.
100%. So what else?
It's a good question though, and it is definitely like in the air. Like, people are talking about whether to understand Britain is to understand it as an empire. I find outside of specifically England, and outside of what you would call the mother country of empire, Britain's influence is felt in the Commonwealth and in the empire across the world. It's like a post-colonial legacy that we don't have the same. We in the UK don't have the same exposure to.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? England and the British Empire managed to export its governmental systems, its judicial systems, its educational systems, its like architectural city planning systems, and all of these things, despite, you know, after the fall of the empire, countries gaining their independence, all of these institutions and systems and ways of being are still so influential.
Yeah, 100%.
And I find that to be a weird way in which we in the UK interact with empire versus the way that everybody else in the world interacts with the remnants of the British Empire.
Yeah, like for example, the Commonwealth, I really think it's a bizarre idea. Like, all of these countries are now free from the UK, but everyone's still within the Commonwealth, and it's not. And the UK is the head of the Commonwealth, so it's like everyone's just still in the empire. To be honest, when they have Commonwealth games and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh, hang on, you let all these countries free. But now they're just all under the Commonwealth, and they're still under your ruling because the UK is just still the leader of the Commonwealth. So it would make more sense for me if there was, say, I don't know, 1 year Spain was the leader of the Commonwealth, or like whoever, all the other countries or whatever, like, or the Caribbean, or like each year another country within the Commonwealth got a chance to run it. That would make it feel for me that was more like there was some sort of change, but it just feels like it's just a different heading or a different thing put over it.
Once again, comes down to like, you know, how the Commonwealth exists in people's imaginations, especially in the imaginations of each of the nations within the Commonwealth, versus like how the Commonwealth exists on like a financial level or a power distribution level, because it appears to be quite lateral. I feel the Commonwealth appears to be way more equal, unquote, than, you know, like the British Empire from which it stems. But of course, you think about just like, you know, you think about trade between Commonwealth countries and how specific, you know, like crops and resources are heavily subsidised in X country, but their prices are jacked up in another country. And a lot of this, once again, stems from like, you know, just stems from colonial era wealth removal from certain countries towards other countries. And I think that, once again, the Commonwealth, in an age of Brexit, in an age where everyone's like, oh, we need to go back to trading with the Commonwealth and stuff, and it's like, well, if you were going to go back on a genuinely equal level with each of the other Commonwealth countries, then there would just have to be a hell of a lot of reduction in the workings of power of the British state compared to other nation states. I'm not even too hot on nation states, but if that's how we're doing it, then there's going to have to be a rebalancing of power, a redistribution of wealth and resources.
That's true. Okay, I saw this and I was a bit confused. I don't know if you've seen it in London, but maybe outside of London, they've been seen in Tesco's, Sainsbury's, any of the major high street stores. They've already put out Easter eggs.
Easter eggs?
Yeah.
In January?
They put it out from New Year's Eve, apparently.
Okay.
They've had Easter eggs in the store since the end of Christmas.
Right.
But it's just like, it feels like institutions or people that are selling things, they're trying to push on the holidays before they even get there. So like, even with Christmas, I saw Christmas from the end of, the moment Halloween ended, I was seeing Christmas decorations out, and I was just like, well, it feels like they're wishing away time before it's even there.
Yeah, but I mean, so when did DFS not have a sale on?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And so like, it's the act of like commercial like institutions.
That's the one.
Yeah, commercialism. It's easier to sell stuff when you can tie it to a festival, or you can tie it to something that people tend to be happier about. So I worked in a co-op supermarket, a co-op corner shop, for like, you know, just under a year, on my gap year, in fact. And so we started getting Easter eggs we started getting them in November, and we had them in our stock room until mid-January when we started putting them out. Yeah, you know, you take down all the Christmas stuff and you switch around the displays. But weird enough, I don't necessarily inherently blame shops for that, because, you know, you don't blame a snake for slithering. Like, I expect them to do that. But of course, it is bare annoying. I'm like, you know, people are barely through Christmas, New Year's, all of the money that you have to spend